Welcome everybody. We don't have a brand for this. It's just a video, so we're just going to get rolling with it. But I want to thank the VetJobs leadership for joining us today. And today we're going to cover VetJobs and military spouse jobs, some of the leading veteran charity organizations providing job placement and ongoing career progression to veterans transitioning military and military spouses. And we want to welcome for the first time the VetJobs Military Spouse Jobs founders and leadership. This is the first time ever we've brought you guys all together, and we're coming together to talk with you guys about your 2021 and the shape of today's employment market as we prepare to go into 2022. There's a lot happening out there, a lot for us to unpack. So let's jump right into it. We're going to start with Rear Admiral Dan Kleppel. And sir, if you can, just give us a roll up of 2021 and walk us through a macro view of what's transpired from your viewpoint through the organizations and what you've achieved and learned during this time.
Okay, thank you, Don. This won't surprise you because we talk about this every week, but our job placement production in the past 2 years has mirrored the state of the economy and the state of the COVID pandemic, like a sine wave, ups and downs. The two situations are now so intertwined that you can't predict one without trying to predict the other. So 2 years ago, in quarter four of 2019 and quarter one of 2020, things are about as good as it gets. 10 million jobs available, record low unemployment, negligible inflation. The economy was hot, and we had a record 6,000 job placements in those 6 months. By quarter two of 2020, COVID became an issue and the economy reacted. That began a large number of layoffs and a large number of people leaving their jobs. By quarter three of 2020, the heat of summer slowed COVID and the economy tried to rebound, and we had a pretty good quarter. We had 2,800 job placements. But quarter four of 2020, cold weather came, more COVID, more layoffs. Quarter two of 2021, kind of the vaccine took some effect. The economy got a little better, but people started leaving their current jobs in droves, somewhat unexplained at the time. By quarter three of 21, the Delta variant was popping up. More people were leaving their current jobs, but we still had a pretty good quarter in quarter three, 2,500 job placements. Many of them were work from home jobs. By quarter four, which is where we are now, here comes Omicron. More people leave current jobs. Hiring pace really slows down. My guess is we'll hit about 2,000 job placements in this quarter. So as record-breaking as it was 2 years ago, 2021 is a record-breaking year in that 20 million people have quit their current jobs. And inflation is the highest it's been in 40 years. So totally different situation 2 years later. About 4.5 million of those that quit were over 55, and they may or may not come back into the workforce, depending on their financial situation and the working situation and the COVID situation. Another 2 million were working mothers, and they have been slow to come back for all sorts of reasons. COVID, childcare, uncertainty of schools. There are just many reasons. Another 57 million people, more than 2 years ago, are now independent contractors. So they may or not seek a job. We don't know yet. Many of the current 11 million jobs right now available are low paying and not really attracting a lot of applicants. But many of those jobs have skill requirements that are not matched by the folks that are applying. So there are a lot of these circumstances that we can't alter. We just can't do anything about it. But the skills gap situation is one that we can attack, and we're doing so. We've taken on a large number of new training partners. Our training department is working overtime. We've seen over 19,000 course completions this year that will enable our applicants to get the job they want in the field they've chosen. So that's it in a nutshell, pretty quick. So we don't know for sure what the future is going to bring, and I know we're going to talk about that a little bit later. So things are not dire, but at the moment, the pace of hiring has slowed down considerably.
Yeah, and just this last week, you went over 20,000 courses completed. So that's a big announcement for you guys as well. And Stacy, we were talking the other day. What's the term that's been applied to a lot of the situations with the individuals leaving their jobs? There was a term that you mentioned from an article. What was that before we jump into the next question?
Oh, well, there's many reasons, but one of them, the one that we were talking about, is a trend with younger workers,
Yeah.
and it's laying flat.
Yeah.
It's the term, and it was coined, I believe, in Asia.
Yeah. So interesting, they applied a term to it now, and laying flat is just a status quo for those who are just paying their bills and living a lifestyle that they want, and not stressing about working such a rigid structure these days. But let's jump in with Alex into the next question, please.
Yeah, so this is for Stacy. So in the current state of the world, how are you guys able to help veterans and military spouses maintain being a front runner in this space all at the same time with everything, how it is right now?
Yes. So there's a lot of things I think we've done over the last couple years, and we're really starting to get in and hone our trade here. Gaps in skills, the Admiral mentioned, gaps in skills is huge. That's something that 5 years ago we determined to set down in a path where we wanted to attack high demand, high growth industries. And in order to, what do we have to do that? Gaps in skills, that was a huge hurdle to overcome. And so building up our training partnerships that allow us to provide both internally and externally. So internally, we use Skills Build. So that's badging, baseline skills, industry-based skills channels on into the beginnings of certifications, and then moving them quickly onto certification and career pathways training, where they can obtain what industry expects for them to have. Because I think that's still a disconnect between the military and the corporate world. I think we've got the nuts and bolts of what we have to have, like a PMP or a SAP certification, but it's going beyond that. It's really going down to the hard and soft skills that employers might not mention on job descriptions because it's just commonplace in the industry. And so that's really where we've become laser focused. The second is to educate better our employers, because I think there's messaging going out, which I really can't stand still to this day, is hire veterans and spouses because we owe it to them, or hire them because we want to help them out. No, hire them because they're the most qualified person you'll ever see, and stop looking at them just as a veteran or just as a spouse, and actually look to the person to identify the fact that, hey, they not only meet the qualifications you're asking for that job, but they actually bring a lot more to the table.
Yeah, and looking ahead, Stacy, let's dive into that a little bit. There's a little bit more to unpack. And you're talking about the soft skills, and not to mention, getting these credentials and soft skills developed. That's a big differentiator for you when you're competing, because look at all that left the market, like the Admiral was mentioning. Some point, millions of those people are going to come back into the marketplace. It's going to become hyper competitive again, and it's going to shift to the employer side of the house, right? And I think they're going to have the advantage at some point. And I think what you're talking about, these credentialing, not only is that developing you as an individual, and that's a testimony to the achievement that you guys have done in the last year and the robust growth. That's a rapid growth in training, with 20,000 certifications and courses completed. That's a big achievement. But let's talk about real quick before we move to Deb, looking ahead, what hiring challenges do you see coming up in 2022?
I think a lot of what we're facing even now, and it's going to continue on into 2022, is some people in Admiral Couple, you touched on this and you talk about it on a weekly basis. Some people just they're not in a hurry to go to work right now. And so but that doesn't mean that they're not coming to organizations like ours for assistance. So our numbers each week continue to grow from 300 to 800 coming in weekly, but not all of those people are in a hurry. They're taking their time. They want the right opportunity, and they're willing to wait it out to get it. And so I think that's what we see, as an organization, that uptick of candidates, and yet they're not going out the door at the same rate. And it has nothing to do with our people and moving them. It has to do with the individuals themselves. The second really is, and I know yes, it is a job seeker market. I guess you could say that, but hey, employers don't always see it that way. So employers, let's flip the coin here. Employers during COVID took their numbers down to survive during the pandemic. Some employers aren't coming out of that. They're like, hey, we actually did better with these numbers, or we're okay. We can sustain this for a while, and let's keep our numbers down so that we keep our costs down. So it's not always a job seeker market. Employers are also being selective. They have slowed hiring in some industries to be more cautious because they're watching their bottom line. And so I think what we're going to see going into 2022 is you're going to start to see employers make those hard decisions. I just talked with some oil and gas companies this morning who, even though oil and gas technically isn't doing bad in some of these key areas, they're making cuts again. Right. And so it's like, okay. So keeping up with that, understanding the trends that our companies are facing, what are the hard decisions that they're making, and the hiring challenges that they face, because I think it's easy to explore hiring challenges that, what do our candidates face? We have to pay equal attention to what our companies are saying are challenges for them as well. Talent is a big, huge, and again, the Admiral talks about this all the time, those gaps in skills, that's a hiring challenge. And some employers will make concessions and say, all right, I'll train to do this. Like we just brought a new employer on this week that said, we will train and hire everybody that finishes this training. That's not the norm. So we still have a challenge educating people on opportunities, moving them into training, completing that training, and then farming them out to the employers that want to hire them.
Yeah, and we're just going to see the impacts of what you're talking about, those zombie companies, right? As the money's really expired, and now are those positions, have they been removed from the job? Those who aren't coming back. So, I mean, that's going to be a factor as well. But that's going to shake itself out, right? So,
yep.
But let's jump in with Alex. She's got a question here for Deb.
Yeah, Deb. So I know there's a lot of new partnerships and there's a lot of moving parts going on right now. So what are you doing specifically to elevate military spouse employment?
I think Stacy and Dan hit the nail on the head. Even though it may seem like it's a job seeker market, and you nailed it, Stacy, these employers have learned to operate more for less. And I think military spouses really need to understand two things. And everyone on our leadership team and our beautiful executive team members in particular, starting from 2004 until now, we've been in this space for 18 years. There's one thing that's never changed. It is military spouse jobs, also known as military spouse corporate career network. It's for life. It's not about that first job. It's about that next job and the next job. And I've always said, Alex, I've always said from day one, military spouses aren't coming to us for a job. They're coming to us to learn how to earn a lifelong income. And in doing so, they stood up this marvelous training environment that I never wanted. I came in kicking and screaming with that because I saw it as mission creep as to our job placement. See, I was still that person, one military spouse, one employer partner, one job at a time. And that was so short-sighted on my part. It took this beautiful executive team to come into my life and graciously said, that ain't gonna work. And if it does, it ain't gonna work for long. And that's when the training environment really began. And what I'm talking to about employers, Alex, very quietly, and it's only because it has to be a slow process in bringing employers into the know. Military spouse employment isn't fixed. Just because you've got big government programs and big nonprofit programs for this, it's still not fixed. And it will never be fixed. Why? It's military culture. So when I go to the employer, and again, Stacy and Dan nailed it for employers, okay? We need to be competitive. It's not just about sending them a million candidates. It's about sending them the right candidate. And that right candidate has to be competitive. I'll say one thing about VetJobs and military spouse jobs. We are competitive with each other graciously and appropriately because it keeps us sharp. We say the same thing to military spouses and to veterans. You have to be competitive in this market. Don't kid yourself to believe this is a job seeker market. It is not. The employer is still in the seat because, Stacy, you nailed it. They have learned to do more with less. And then now you talk about independent contracting. Well, VetJobs and military spouse jobs, we are the leader in that, always have been. So now we're going to make better independent contractors. So Alex, when I go to employers, when Stacy goes, because it's not the Def Leppel show, you leave me. It takes this beautiful team, in particular, this executive team, going into employers and letting them know, don't hire them because they're veterans. Don't hire them because they're military spouses. Hire them because they are the most intelligent, most loyal, most credible, most trustworthy, most competitive candidate on the planet who happen to love their military and country. Thank you, Alex.
And we've seen that you guys leading from the front like that have been a great example, because we even just interviewed another company just now who created a great military spouse program, hiring program. And it's not an initiative. It's not, hey, we're trying to do this. It's a long-standing program that they're trying to cultivate. And it's a great culture they're developing. And it's what they have, Leaf Home, and they have positions all over the country, 600 plus locations. Shameless plug here for Leaf Home. But they can transfer the job. So if you're a military spouse, the 100%, they're not going to fire you if you're leaving. They're going to want to move you to a new location and pick up right where you left off from within the company and the organization. I think that's tremendous. And we're starting to see things like this, and it's leadership like how you guys have brought to the marketplace. And plus, I think what's seen in the last year or two is a great cohesion starting to happen. And yes, there's the MSEPs. You got the Blue Star family groups that you guys have always been tied to. But I think you guys are starting to play a little bit nicer in the sandbox with each other. And there's a lot more cohesion happening in the marketplace. And great to see that type of stuff develop. But I applaud you guys and Deb for cultivating that and getting on board with the training. It's just been a great part for you guys. But let's.
I think real quick, I wanted to add it. I think specifically for spouses, Alex, the world is somewhat changing. I think 5 years ago, you would have heard organizations like the USO or large organizations like that say, we have this, we have it solved, we don't need help. The world has changed. They've become very collaborative. And I think not just at the organizational level, but also at the higher level. So you talk about MSEP, when we go to the ambassador roundtable meetings and we go to the partner meetings, the message is the same. The message is this is not solved and we need to continue to take action. And they're really starting to highlight organizations like military spouse jobs to say, see this organization, they're solid. They provide metrics. We know what they're doing because they show us all the time consistently. So they're saying, yeah, numbers don't lie. So, but they're saying they're doing a call out that's happened in the last ambassador roundtable. They do a shout out and then they say, you have to show up. You either show up or, so I think they're taking very firm action to say, we recognize the partners who are doing very well. And we've done a great job, I think, over the years of continuing to collaborate and partner. And now that's paying off because now they've seen a consistency from our organization. We're not going anywhere. We're getting bigger, not smaller. And they're starting to point that out and say, we need more of that. And if you can't deliver, good luck. And I think that's important, right? Collaboration, action, these are things that we want to be behind.
And employers want that, don't they, Stacy and Dan?
Yes.
They want collaboration. And the last few employers that I've spoken with are delighted with our partnerships with the government programs and the vetted nonprofits. And I tip my hat once again to the executive team. We vet our partners. And I think that's part of our secret sauce. We just don't cloud on partners. That's not what we do. And what Stacy brought to light is high growth, high demand jobs held by certain employers. That's another one of our secret sauces. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and that's a testament to your recent launch of the, you're doubling down in the partnerships area, and that was just announced in, I think, October, that you guys are taking that action. So, but thank you guys for weighing in on that. I think it's very important that we touch on that and just show the growth of what's happening in this area. So, but let's wrap, and we're going to move along right now with the Admiral and to wrap up. And sir, we talk about this a lot, and I think people would be keen on hearing your opinion as we touched on the recent months, the activities of COVID, the zombie companies, people leaving, the departure of the jobs in masses. What do you see ahead going into 2022?
Well, I'm going to give you my best guess because I can't predict the future. But here's what I can say with certainty, and that is this consistent message that we've tried to portray to our candidates, all three of us. Training is going to become even more important. As artificial intelligence and automation eliminates and changes current jobs, new jobs with new skill sets will take their place. Knowledge jobs, that's a new term. Knowledge jobs will pay premium salaries, but training will be required to land those jobs. So get ahead of the power curve, as we say in the aviation world. Decide what field you want to pursue, and then figure out what kind of training you're going to need to succeed in that field. And we're here to help you do that. We've got a great training program, and we want to help you get the job that you want. And even though 2020 was a tough year, we still put 10,000 people into jobs. So we can get it done. And we want to help you get the job you would like to get.
Well, on behalf of myself and my co-host, Alexandra O'Neill, we want to thank you guys for coming together and entertaining us, as we're always trying to do these video interviews with you guys. So we appreciate you guys coming to, all three of you, in the same space, talking about what's ahead, what you've achieved in 2021, and sharing your thoughts with those in the community. So thank you. Congratulations on your achievements and what you're doing for the military and veterans and the military spouses out there.
And I will tell our applicants that every Wednesday morning executive team call is just as entertaining.
Right. There's even more people on that one. Yes.
Yeah.